Hello. Let me turn this down. Let me switch to this. Hello. We should be switching over. There's such a delay. Okay, good. I think we are live. Let me just do a sound check real quick. Okay, good. And I think that echo's gone. Hello and welcome to Conflict and Contrast, which is, we'll see how long this series actually lasts, but if you've been following like Twitter or anything like that, I've been kind of talking about how I'm getting into, Greg says we're sounding good. Great, perfect. A little bit into miniature painting. So I'm starting tonight. A big catalyst for this was not only, Warhammer Cursed City, which we might talk about a little bit later on the stream, but these little guys here, which is contrast paint, which was designed to be just easy to put on, get your stuff painted fast. I'll show you here real quick before we get into this, and we will get going. Like 5 years ago, I started to try to paint something, and this is that result. This was like a zombie or something. I think he's wearing a fur hat. I mean, I suppose it's not the very worst thing, but I gave up pretty early on. You can see I did some leather fur stuff and some like human flesh. So this is the benchmark, and I'm just hoping to pass that by. So what do we have tonight? This is my first time using contrast paints. So I've got a little Dwarf Sorcerer I'm going to play around with. I play Dwarf Sorcerer in Curse of Strahd, ran by my buddy Mike. He's a brewmaster. I like this little mini, so this is Delg. We might get into him as kind of a test, but I think this will be a little more forgiving. This young green dragon. Yeah, that's right, sexy loincloth zombie. There's a lot of room to work with, because the one thing I've learned since getting started over the last week or so is these minis look way bigger on the screen. Like, his abs are so small, but on the video I watched on how to paint this guy, like, it just looks a lot bigger. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this young green dragon, which at some point I will use in Dungeons and Dragons, and just to get a feel for how the paint goes on. So that's where we're going to start. I'll probably move to my Untamed Beasts Warcry Band. The minis are awesome. That's what several of these are. I'm going to start moving some of these out of the way so I got some room to work with. The other thing I'm going to do is, so in 40k and Kill Team, not only do I want to run Battle Sisters to get some Gundam nuns, I want to do some Space Marines. And I really want to do Imperial Fists. And there's kind of two chapters of the Imperial Fists, either just straight up Imperial Fists or Hammers of Dorn. Imperial Fists, this is like a test guy that I don't plan on running my army anyways. I'm going to try him in yellow and see how he comes out. And then Hammers of Dorn, which are a successor chapter, I'm going to run with like a black with orange trim. They look pretty sweet. And I'm just going to see, do I like the Black Templar contrast or the yellow contrast with the splash of red? So I will put the first paint coat on these guys. We'll actually see how far we get with the Untamed Beasts. Because I care a little bit more about how the Untamed Beasts come out. So, a couple just real quick before we get started. With contrast color, you're actually applying straight from the pot. So I bought this little handy thing so it didn't spill, but don't be a fool like me. These don't fit in here. So I need to find one that fits. Great idea, but not good in practice. I've heard some colors don't look as great, so I'll probably throw some blue on Delg wherever he ended up, just to see if the blue works or not. So on this green dragon, I'm just going to freestyle it, and I think we'll get started. I've got this big shade brush, and I think that's enough jib-jabbing. Got some other guys back here. They're not primed yet. It's way too cold for that. All right, let's get to it. If you have any questions, I'll monitor chat as we go. Let me switch to a better window for that. Okay. So I'm going to start with, this is Dark Angels Green. A couple things that I have picked up on. One, I need a little bit more permanent paint surface. This is an old Dice Masters deal that I don't care about at all. Is you only want your contrast paint about halfway up your brush, and you want to be pretty generous, but you don't want to let it really pool up. So, and you don't go back is the other thing I've learned. You do your magic and you just let it go. So the whole point of contrast paints is this will pull away from the raised points and do the highlighting for you, so you don't have to go back and do a whole bunch of highlighting. So I'm just gonna get started. And the other thing you can do, so let's say I want these ridges to be a different color, is I can just go back and rebase these guys with my pot base. You can go with Wraithbone, which is kind of the recommended from Games Workshop, or Gray Sear, and they have that in spray. But if I want to do little touch-up areas, that is a possibility. So we're just... I wish all miniatures were this big. I understand that size may not allow that to happen. What I'm thinking about with this guy is I'm going to do this Dark Angels green, and then hit the bottom side with Plague Bearer Flesh, which is like a yellow puke green. So that'll be fun. All right. So what questions do you guys have? Have you guys used contrast paints yet? In the meantime, so things I plan on doing with this, we're gonna get the Warcry. Then they would not be minis, man, if they were all that big. That is true, and scale matters. Like, this dragon is not to scale. The base is not for scale. I guess I'm gonna do these ridges. Oh, this guy's gonna take a while. Oh, see, I dipped way too in there, which is good. This is why I start with this guy. And there's a lot there, so we can see what the heck I'm doing. So I'm going to get my Warcry painted up, or my Warband painted up, first step. And then I am working on those Space Marines. And then I've got a whole bunch of Necromunda plastic that I want to start working on, which is the gray guys back here, and then there's Underworlds guys next to them. So that's kind of the immediate future. Long-term plans, I want to get some Finnish troops and try a little bit of Chain of Command, which, as I understand, is a tactical World War II system designed by the Too Fat Lardies guys. I'll try not to bump the camera too much. So I'm curious how this will be on like big surfaces. Now, this is not like a big flat surface. The wings have a fair amount of detail here. So my thought is this will actually look pretty slick. So yeah, fins would be next, but not going crazy. I don't want to do like Flames of War or anything like that. I just want like a little, couple squads of guys. Like get a light mortar, light machine gun, heavy machine gun, just some regular troops. All right, so now I'm going to be a little more careful here, because on the underside, again though, if I do go somewhere I don't want to go, I can just rebase it. Okay. Just working it in all over. Okay, now I wish this guy wasn't so big, because there's a lot of shit to paint. So yeah. One of the cool things over the last week or so is exploring Warhammer lore, specifically 40k lore. Like the amount of stuff that's out there, and the kind of like funny stuff, but could be done well stuff is really neat. Like orcs, I had no idea I mean, from an outsider looking in at first glance, it's like, well, why the heck are orcs a part of 40k lore? But they're pretty darn cool. And my understanding is the whole premise is they are basically a fungus. This is what a buddy of my brother has told me. And they don't have enough psychic power to kind of control things on their own, but in mass, they kind of have a shared psychic power. And so if enough of them believe or know something works, then it works. So there's no mechanical reason for why their guns or their planes fly. It's just they know they work, so they work. And I think one of the funniest examples of that is there's a commissar or something, and they know he's immortal, which in turn makes him immortal. And I just find that that bit of lore pretty funny. Oh, that's why this man under here. So I put a little bit of plastic glue on this stand that holds him up, but obviously I didn't let it dry because I just did it tonight. And there's all kinds of stuff like that. There's the Flesh Eater Court in Age of Sigmar. So I guess if you're completely new to this, like I am, Age of Sigmar is more or less fantasy, and 40k is more or less sci-fi. And there are 20 factions in each game, like way more than I ever thought there was. So in Age of Sigmar, which is kind of the fantasy based game, and Warcry here is the skirmish version of Age of Sigmar. Okay, there's the Flesh Eater Court. That's where I was going. Flesh Eater Court are basically vampire cannibals, but they're all living in a grand illusion where they basically think they're a court of nobles. And so, like, in their minds, they're these noble knights and riding these steeds into battle. But in reality, the minis are terrifying and ferocious and ugly and hideous. And it's finding out that kind of stuff in the lore that's really turning me on to the... So I'm reading one of the books, Horus Rising, written by Dan Abnett. And Dan Abnett is actually a very skilled comic book writer. He wrote... Basically, if you came to me and said, hey, I want to learn more about this Star-Lord guy, or I want to learn about Marvel in space, he and another guy, Greg will know, it's DNA, Dan Abnett and Andy something, Greg may know here, they wrote Annihilation and a whole bunch of other stuff with Marvel superheroes in space. And so he's a very good comic artist. So he writes a bunch of Warhammer novels. And I got to say, it's passing my expectations way by. Because the stuff is better than I ever imagined it to be. The lore and the writing. Now, my understanding is not all of the Warhammer books are near as good as what Dan Abnett writes, but there's all kinds of stuff. Short stories. There's like a Andy Giffen. Is that right? Okay. No, Giffen did. Well, anyways, he did like the old stuff, I think. But maybe you're right. I don't have Google in front of me. Anyways, there's like horror, and there's like stuff that really leans into the like Cthulhu-esque stuff. Which, if you listen to our podcast or any of the RPG stuff I do, you know that's stuff I enjoy as well. Okay, so let's finish this green up. And then Andy Schmidt, okay, gotcha. Then where does the A come in? DNA. In the Annihilation run. Anyways, So yeah, there's stuff that really leans into Cthulhu stuff. Is what I've heard. And that's cool, I think. So one thing I should be checking for is like areas where it's really pooled up. I want to dry this up a little bit. Then I'm going to apply some, trying not to go back onto areas I touched, but I'm going to go all the way down on these ridges. Okay, sorry, I get some off camera there. So, all right. Anyways, I'm really enjoying it. The Age of Sigmar stuff hasn't caught my attention as much yet, but you know, when I was looking into this, I was like, oh, Space Marines, that's boring. Those are just blue guys running around. No, it's way more than that. Basically, so now we're gonna dive into it. Unless someone has some questions, ask away. So there are several different legions of Space Marines. The Imperial Fists that I talked about painting, they're yellow and red. They're one of those legions. Each legion has a Primarch, which is basically in direct lineage, kind of like demigod of the Emperor. And so each legion has a leader called a Primarch, and each legion is kind of known for different things. So like the Imperial Fists are siege defensive masters, tasked with defending Terra, which is Earth, where the Emperor, I would say, resides, but he's basically a corpse that's being kept alive as it disintegrates, because the Emperor was killed by, not killed, nearly killed by one of his own Primarchs, Horus, which is part of the Horus heresy, which is what I'm reading now. So, come to find out that no, not all Space Marines are in fact blue dudes. That each of these chapters have their own very unique story and characteristics, which is way cooler than I ever thought. Some of them have like unique vehicles or, you know, unique masks. Like the Dark Angels are super churchy, that have a dark secret, which is basically when Horus killed the Emperor, like half of them were traitors, not loyal to the Emperor as well, and they're kind of like, keep that hush hush, and they're all concerned about like maintaining their reputation. Yeah. But where was I go? Oh yeah, they're like super churchy, and so like all of their stuff is really gothic-y. Question: did Games Workshop name Horus just because it was alliterative to the word heresy? You know, based off what I know, Kyle, on Games Workshop, I wouldn't be surprised. So another thing I've learned in the whole week I've been doing this, is Games Workshop really likes to steal and borrow ideas. Looking at the Necromunda stuff, those guys with the shields back there are basically just judges from Judge Dredd. And that's awesome. They're the guys I'm going to play Necromunda to start. They've made them less Judge Dredd, but they're Judge Dredd. So are they the kind of company that would just name him Horus for alliteration? Yeah, probably. Okay, I think I need to rotate this guy. So I don't know if it's coming through, but I can see it. Like it's deeper in the ridges, which is awesome. I think this guy's gonna look way nicer than if I tried to do him a different way. Yep. So now I'm gonna mix him up a little bit. Like I said, I'm not doing all green on him, but primarily green, because that's how he is on the box. I actually haven't fought a dragon in Dungeons and Dragons yet. I ran the... Yeah, that's true. Greg says Games Workshop has had plenty of stuff stolen. Yeah, so come to find out that Zergs are Tyranids, and yeah, Marines look a heck of a lot like Games Workshop Marines. It seems like Games Workshop just filled in some of the 40k lore after they designed a bunch of stuff. I mean, Night Lords, how are those ever good guys? Yeah, they probably just went with like what's cool, but it works. At least it works for me. I understand some people may not be into stuff, and there's stuff that I'm not into in I guess not the lore, but so much like the model designs. Like my brother and I split the Indominus box, and he's taken the Necrons. And although I think they are cool, I don't like their models as much. So it's just not a. I mean, it's. I think where Games Workshop has a plus isn't too far off what Kyle said. Is like if you have really cool miniatures, then you just write a story to line up with those miniatures. And as long as you don't blow it, I think you're in good shape. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to work this back into a point. Brother says something about licking brushes. I just don't think I'm to that point yet. Fact, Blizzard wanted to work with the Games Workshop and use the 40k license, and Games Workshop turned them down. Wow. That is interesting. I wonder what the world would be like now if they had not turned them down. Would we have gotten World of Warcraft? Would we have gotten World of StarCraft? Would we have gotten the StarCraft board game reprinted in another form besides Forbidden Stars? I only played good guys, Necrons and Plague Marines. Yeah, so that brings up a good point. There's no... I think this is too wet. That's what she said. Alright, I got some paper towels just for that purpose. So this brings up a good point, I think. You don't need to wet your contrast paint. So you do not need to water it down like you do other paints. You just dab and go. So I did not set up a wet palette or anything like that. I am just dipping straight into the pot in a pretty generous amount, but like right there I think I did too much. And I'm just being careful in there, although again, you don't have to be, because you can just touch it up later. And since I put so much on, I'm just going up and trying to soak some of that up and get back in there. WAP, wet ass paint. I love it. See, I have way too much on there. Like, I know you want to be generous, and the whole point is here is you're supposed to just be able to get by with one coat. So instead of two light coats, like some guys that are way more skilled than I would recommend, you're supposed to just be able to do one coat of contrast paint. Those claws are... Actually, you can water down contrast paint. Yes, you can. That's a very good point. I have... So, Kyle says you can water down contrast paint. Yes. Yes, you can. As a matter of fact, I'm debating whether I'm going to water down this contrast paint with medium to make the flesh a little lighter. I want to see what it looks like. So, yes. In my understanding, it just makes things a little bit lighter. So Kyle recently painted his alien set, and he's got Ripley and some dope-ass shoes, so that's cool. And I think he's working on Space Hulk next. 2003 game? Is that right? 2007? This is not a Warcry mini. This is a pre-primed Dungeons and Dragons Young Green Dragon, which was... I wanted to see how this goes on before I got too far, because I care a little bit more about the Space Marines, even though they're just testers as well, than I do this guy. And so I just wanted to see how the paint acted. This looks like it should be green. So I think okay. I gotta get in here. Gosh, this guy is just soaking up stuff. Still have the Alien Marines to do, then Space Hulk. Nice. I watched that Guerrilla Miniature guys playthrough of the Alien game. The guy you recommended, Kyle. And wow, it is just like a relentless onslaught of aliens coming at the good guys. So now, sorry, I keep dragging it over here. What I think I might call it on this guy, and just when I don't have a camera right in front of me, I might come back to this guy and do the more detailed stuff. Because right now, I feel like I'm missing a lot of points. I think I'm being too careful here. I think I just need to get in there and get it painted. Okay, got some spots here. Let's fill that in. And let's get his neck next. And then I think we'll put him on his stand and see how he looks here in a little bit. Still good look at the game. Yeah, for sure. So I think I want to do his ridge a little bit differently, so I'm trying to stay away from that. Oops. Do his foot. Also, Space Hulk originally came out in 89 or 90. Third edition was 2009, reprinted in 2014. I did not realize it came out in 2014 because I remember in undergrad playing Death Angel, I think is what it was, the card game. And I would solo that. And I thought at that time you couldn't get Space Hulk. But maybe you could, and I just wasn't interested. It's been a long time. Let me finish this up. So I'm gonna have to put him back on his stand to get him done. I probably should have based him all the way to start. But now I've kind of worked myself into this corner. Let's work on his kind of back scales here. Okay. So I don't know when I'll get this guy used, but I also have some other these epic encounter minis that I really want to get painted. They're amazing detail from Steam Forged games. That's kind of a cool concept. It's basically adventures in a box. Really, the minis don't even need painted. I mean, like for the Frost one, they've kind of got like a blue shade to them. Kind of ready to go, and I think they have them for like starting adventures, or you can scale them up to higher levels. All right, doesn't keep it okay. Space Hulk reprint sells out immediately. I didn't even know there were expansions for. Yeah, because they haven't reprinted any of the Warhammer Quest stuff yet, have they? I wonder if they'll redo Forbidden Stars. I imagine not, because of the nightmare that has to be with working with Asmodee now. But when that came out, a lot of the Eurogame YouTubers sure liked Forbidden Stars, which was the reskin of StarCraft set in the 40k universe, and then Fantasy Flight lost their Games Workshop license for the board games. Okay. Oh, got some stuff in here. And I'm gonna come back at these back scales from this other side. So get under here. Let's see that gray. Okay, and then I think I'm gonna give him a rest. What I want to avoid is I don't want to put a second coat on anything, but I need to get closer to this guy, I think, and I also need to get him set down. Getting a little hard to paint. Yeah, I'm gonna wait to do the wings, so the wings are gonna be Plague Bear Flesh with dark green highlights. Under here, spread some of this around. You get these claws again. I think Games Workshop own the license for Forbidden Stars since Fantasy Flight no longer have it because. Oh, okay. So you think Games Workshop could reprint Forbidden Stars if they wanted to? That's what you're saying. Okay, I'm gonna be done with this guy. For now. Alright, let's see if I can't get him situated. We'll hold him right here by his head. And we'll get him on his base. And we'll take a quick look at what he looks like. Okay. So there you go. Now if I can get him to stay, I could actually finish him off. Okay, let's finish him off. I was kidding. So, dry that up a little bit. Work this back to a point. Finish off his feet here. I don't know if I should have rinsed my brush like that. I think that's too much contrast paint, yeah. So I need to come back and dry that up. But I will borrow from it here in a second. I think GW could reprint Forbidden Stars unless copyright for the game itself is owned by someone else indecently of the 40k theme. But the new CEO wanted a renewal, internal focus on board games at Games Workshop, so it made sense. Well, I think there has definitely been a renewal for sure with the Warhammer Quest stuff. Independently, thank you. I got this claw here. And now we're going to do the ridge a different color. And I think I'm going to go ahead and make his face and then just retouch the detailed areas. And then we're going to start on some Marines. Oh, wipe out. That's good because I need to get in here, move this around, and then we're good. Okay. So lesson learned, have this guy based completely before starting to paint him. Let's go in there. I don't know if you can see the wings, but I think it's looking good for only just kind of rubbing this crap all over the place without any rhyme or reason. And being very generous with it. Let me just finish up his face. Again, I don't want to put a second layer on this because one thing I've noticed with the second layers is it's very glossy if you go back with a second layer of the contrast paints, which is fine if that's what you want. I'm going to go ahead and hit these with the underside because I'm going to make them dark green. These rips for... Okay. Down there. So that will highlight on its own. Might as well get in here. Just by, as the paint dries, pulls away from the edges and kind of pools in the recessed areas. Looking now at Unmade and Spire Tyrants as my starting war bands in addition to Catacombs. The Spire Tyrants look very cool. I think the Unmade, they're kind of like the Necrons a little bit. Not that they're... But like, I love they have that big, tall, lanky guy. You can also kill any excess gloss with Dull Coat. That's interesting, and that's good to know because I'm not sure how the black is going to turn out on the Space Marines. Because if you don't do 2 coats, I think it looks pretty gray, which may be okay, but I want to see it in person. But when I saw 2 coats of the black, it was very glossy. Yeah. Have you looked at the Iron Golems, Kyle? Okay, so there we go. Dragon. Young green dragon. Young angry green dragon. I'm not going to bore you with... we can check in next week with... or whenever I come back with the Plague Marine underneath and see how he is looking. So... I'm really curious about this yellow. So one thing I've heard is painting yellow is very difficult. I don't know why. These are primed white. One thing I saw you could do is hit this with Xana something dust and then do a Zenithal coat. So basically you prime it with like this mustard yellow and then hit it with the Wraithbone coat over the top to get a nice shading effect, and then come back with the Iandin yellow. It's cold as Icewind Dale here, and I can't prime, so I was at someone else's mercy, and Buddy Zach was kind enough to get this guy primed up. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do the yellow. And come around and hit all of the power armor. I'm going to try to avoid these areas. I'm going to go ahead and hit the chest entirely and then just rebase the skull there. And shoulder pads, pack, power armor. I may try to avoid the leather, but again, I'm just going to be very generous and try to hit it all. I think I'll go with this character brush. Yeah, Iron Golems have Gladiator look too. I just didn't pick them because I like picking stuff everyone doesn't already have. Oh yeah, I'm a little bit that way as well. But I understand I'm painting a Space Marine, so you can only put so much faith in that. But there's something to be said about picking the underdogs for sure. Which I also like the Skaven for that reason. I'm going to start at the bottom and just work up. So here we go. Iandin yellow. Contrast paints for an Imperial Fists army. Again, this is... I just looked at model builds. I'm never going to play this competitively, so I don't really care about the competitive nature of like how competitive are Iron Fists. I just looked at some sample builds and saw that this particular type of Space Marine is not used in those builds. Maybe I'll want to run them, but that's why they're kind of practice, just because I don't plan on throw them on the table. One of the, on Space Marines was to work the paint downwards on the model. All right, let's do that. I'm down for trying anything. I got a glob here, so I'll start up here at the shoulders. Yeah, so work it down. Yeah, let's try it. Why not? Gosh, they look so much bigger on YouTube. Like, so much bigger. Yeah, I think the important thing is to just hit an area and move on. You know, I think it's you can't go back and touch this stuff up as it's drying. You just do your stuff and get out of there. Now I did see you could I could soak this up a little bit. Well, I had paint on my that was dumb. But you can kind of soak up those pooled areas. So I should probably go back here. No, I'm just going all over the place. Fuck it. All right. I should probably move on from the shoulders before I fuck it up too much. I've got a big glob of plane here, so let's get under here. Again, everything I see you want to be generous, but you don't want to have too much, is the official word from the Warhammer videos themselves. Don't touch wet paint. Yeah. Hardest lesson for... Yeah, I think some of that fortunately comes from the not touching wet paint rule. Also, I need to cut back on coffee. Carries over from painting rooms inside my house as well. Because really at some point all you're doing is just ripping the paint off. You're not doing yourself any favors, so let that first coat dry. I think because that flows naturally into grooves and stuff, which tend to be towards the bottom of Space Marine's armor. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I'm going to start on this leg over here. I'm going to work down. Follow Kyle's advice. So when deciding my chapter, and so I'm considering the main one of the founding chapters, Imperial Fists, which I've talked about. They're defensive in nature. They have a successor chapter, and I don't remember where it was founded. Galaxy's a big place, folks. That's Hammers of Dorn, and they're black and gold, or black and orange, black and gold. There's some others. There's actually quite a few successor Imperial Fist chapters. But I was also looking at Iron Hands, which are like half robot guys. Not to be confused with the Mechanicus guys, whatever. I hope I'm putting this on thick enough. I guess we'll find out. Let's see. I should probably paint his crotch, I guess. Get in there. Again, I think I'm being too careful as well. If you got a million of these guys to paint, I can always go reback and rebase certain areas. So just hitting these areas. And like the black, I think I can just go over no problem without rebasing. So get up here in his butt. Bottom of his shoes painted. Let's see, I got a lot there. So I'm going to try to... That head is very wobbly. Oh, that's because these are guys that are push fit guys. Yeah, so this is from the Indominus box. And that's all push to fit, which right now I've just snapped into place. I've not glued these, and I think I will glue certain parts. just so it's not a concern. Like one of my arms had already just come off from moving around the box. Iron Hands are natural allies to Adeptus Mechanicus. They both basically worship machines. Yeah, one of the videos I watched was like, you pray to your 2000 whatever Honda Civic. Yeah, first base go ham. Even Sir Duncan's Mania on the first base goat. Yeah, alright. So I'm going to pick up the pace here a little bit. Because I would like to show you guys, another about 15 minutes left in the stream, what this looks like dried a little bit. I did notice this will be like an orangey yellow, but I hope with that lighter, with this kind of off-white base coat, it should be a little bit lighter. So it's not like a pure bright yellow, which you'll see with some of the Imperial Fists stuff. I guess I don't need to be really careful around the base at all, because that's all going to get covered up. Let's get in here. So I'm trying to avoid those packs. Another group I looked at was definitely the Dark Angels, just because of their ships. Like, I think it's really cool. Oh, and then they have this awesome like compound that you can buy and man as a defense. I think you can like bring it into any battle, was my understanding. It's crazy expensive though, and also it's Dark Angels. And I don't know, if I'm running Battle Sisters, they're all kind of a little churchy then. I just want some difference between them. Right now though, the plan with the Battle Sisters is to just run a kill team with them until the Gundam nuns come in. It'd be easier to paint with some of the arms and weapons. Yeah. On these guys back here for Necromunda, Kyle, the Judge Dredd guys, those few guys are painted, but I think I'm gonna paint the shields. Like any guy that's holding a shield like that, I think I'm gonna paint the shield separately and then glue it on, just because it's covering up so much stuff. Now I'm just going to go around and look for some stuff that I missed. Trying not to... I'm going to assume this is yellow. Oh, that's where the helmet goes, so sure. Trying not to go back over stuff that's drying. Okay. I should add, this is important, if you didn't pick this up at the beginning of the video, I am very far from an expert. And this all amounts to me just watching some YouTube videos. There's tons of stuff out there, and I think there's tons of different opinions on contrast paints and what they're good for and what they're not good for. I like the idea of getting an army churned out very quickly, also with very little, I don't want to say not skill. It's not like easy mode or anything like that. It's just, you know, it takes out the really fine detail step that is the kind of stuff that drives me a little bit insane. Like when I'm painting, I just went over an area. When I'm doing like adult coloring books, I don't really enjoy them because I worry too much about them. It's a ridiculous thing, I know. But this kind of alleviates that stress by going over the really fine detailed stuff kind of on its own. And what I mean by that is it's taking care of the edge highlights. Like where, if a light was shining down on him, like where would it be hitting? Okay, I think we should let him sit. What do you guys think? Let him sit. Dry. Maybe get back in here. Yeah, and if there's mistakes, they're easy to fix. Now, like, I don't know, should I dry? Like, you can dry some of this stuff up, but yeah, see, I need to get in here. They're undeniably better at Games Workshop getting more people to paint minis, which I'm 100% for. The negative around them, if any, is mostly old men yelling at clouds. Yeah. And I get it. Like, if you're looking for a really fine detail, I'm not going to knock you for being really good at this stuff. Well, that's a good point, Kyle. Yes, you can. Like, so I can come back and add a whole bunch of detail to this guy. I can do the highlighting or not. I can let this guy dry and then be done with him. I mean, it just depends on how much you want. I mean, I guess that's true of anything. Shit, I could spray paint this guy yellow and say, all right, I've got an Imperial Fist army. Dang, now I see an area I want to hit his thumb. Sorry, I don't have the mini on the screen right now. I'm just doing some moving them closer to my face. That's true. There's nothing preventing me from coming back and adding that layer of detail if I want. But also, sometimes I'm just going to want to churn out an army. And I'm just going to want to spray this shit on there. Not spray. Rub this shit on here and be good with it. So, I mean, I think as I get better at this, I hope it'll be a blend of efforts. The plan for now is to stick to strictly contrast, because I want to see how it goes. And then hopefully, as I get better, I can throw in some highlighting. And you know what, like on a basic Space Marine guy like this, yeah, maybe I don't come and do the highlighting. But like on the guy we're going to paint here next real quick, before we're out of time, yeah, I may come back and do some highlighting for sure, which is great. And I suppose you can do that with any paint that's not a contrast exclusive. By the way, I've got the metal ball bearings in here, which you may be able to hear, to help mix these up, because this is still, sorry about that, like this is still perfectly fine, but there will be a lot of stuff kind of caked at the bottom, and if you give it a good enough shake, it'll be fine, completely usable, but like you can really see it with the silicon gray. But throw those little ball bearings in there, and it's nothing. Okay, let's do some Gilman Flesh. So these paints, I saw this deal, like don't ever, well I guess not ever, but don't store your paintbrushes up and down. Obviously you want to put the tips down. I'll have to watch these after, but I don't know if that's true or not. Okay, so this guy, my understanding is the approach I'm going to take here will work for most of my Untamed Beasts. Obviously, this guy's going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to be hitting this with Gilman Flesh, and that may be all we get to before next time. Let's go with this one's a little bit more fine. And I'm just hitting all of his flesh. And so I probably should have started with a little guy, but if this guy's darker, that's okay. I don't mind the darker flesh. So what they recommend from Games Workshop is just, like Kyle said, throw some the contrast, what's that called? Oh, the thing where you're talking about for thinning down contrast paints. And I need to take my own advice and the advice of Games Workshop, and that's not worry too much here, because, again, I can come back and rebase anything I accidentally paint over. So, let them dry flat. Okay. Go back to the paintbrushes. So I'm just hitting all of his flesh, like right there. Well, I'll just have to rebase that. And that is what it is. I was gonna rebase the fur anyways, I think, to make it give it like a different, like a more frosted look. For under the white. It's kind of the plan there. Let's see. Rub some of that off. I'm gonna do his leg because I've got a lot on here. There's gonna be some tan boys. Reduces the glue that holds the bristles if you let them dry vertically. Okay, good to know. I was wondering the reason. So, for example, here, if you go watch the Games Workshop video on how to paint your Untamed Beasts, they start with contrast paint. And then, like, his nipples and this scar I'm painting over on his right thigh here, you can go back and hit with Wraithbone or some other kind of lighter highlight color to add more detail to those spots. Now, the advantage here, though, is it should pool and pull away from that scar, that little X. Medium, thank you. Contrast medium is the word I was looking for earlier. But we'll see how this dries. It's already a little bit lighter than what it looked. And again, if I hit anywhere, it's okay. I need to remind myself of that because I can rebase it. I do like how this flesh looks already. Way more than my my fur-wearing zombie from earlier, which we can take a look at. And then I'll get his face. I'll have to rebase that for sure. Got one more brush left. Not that I couldn't reuse the others, and I've got a few minutes, so I think I'm going to do one more thing, and that's hit it with the Skeletal Horde. Basically what I'm going to do with the Skeletal Horde is hit all of the bone, but I want to try this cool thing that I watched happen. I'm going to get a little bit closer here, where they kind of blended these two contrast paints. Okay, I think I'm done with flesh. Get in there. I think they highlight up to his rippling 12-pack with some high. Yes. Yeah, for sure. They definitely, yeah, they hit the scar, they hit the 12-pack, all of that stuff, which is great. If I really like this guy, sure. There's nothing to prevent me from going back and doing that. But you can also be good with this. Okay, so I'm going to give this a quick little rinse. I'm going to get some of that water dried out of there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to real quick go over the bone with the Skeletal Horde. I'm going to carefully move that out of the way so I don't spill it everywhere. And I really liked how this color looked on the weapons in the finished product. So I'm just hitting all the bone. Bone, bone, 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 bone. Get back here, get back here. And here's what I'm going to show you here. So he's got this badass greave. So we're going to hit that. Okay. Is the whole greave bone? It sure looks like it is, doesn't it? I think it is all bone. So let's hit it all. If we don't like it, I can rebase it. I need to remember that. None of this is permanent. Okay. I just want to show one thing before I get done here. Let's see, there's some bone down here. You know, I had a little bit of brown there, but I'm not going to worry about that. Or Gilman Flesh. Okay, did I get all the bone? Nope. Alright, alright. I promise this will hopefully be cool. Do a little bit of contrast blending. Look at that. Advanced techniques. Hit that. You know what? I'm finding this guy a little bit easier to paint than the dragon, to be honest. So far. I mean, obviously I haven't gotten into the really nitty-gritty stuff. Okay. I've still got some paint on here. I'm going to hit just the top. Oh, I don't know. Whoops. Oh, no. I'm going to have to rebase him. That's okay. I'll just re-glue him on there. Top, I don't know, 2/3 of this skull here. Get in there. Get in there. And, is that good? While that's still wet, I'm going to hit the very tips of the, kind of like two horns going on there. While this is still wet, I'm going to come in with the Gilman Flesh. Okay, so I just did a little bit there. So I'm going to come back in with the Gilman Flesh now. I'm going to start at the base. I'm going to drag it into the Skeletal Horde. I got a whole bunch of this here. So, should be a nice like 2-color blend when it's all said and done. Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for stopping by and bearing with me as I learn the fabulous process of miniature painting. And while I got this Gilman Flesh, I'm just going to touch up this one spot here while I have the miniature away from the camera. Maybe we'll get some nice two-tone with the bone there. We'll see how that turns out. Let's take a look at the other miniatures we did. And I'll pop this base out. And I will glue him back up tonight. So there's that guy. Okay, so here's our young green dragon. Pre-primed D&D miniature. I mean, that's cool. Like, in my opinion, this... oh man, I've got 2 lights going in here. And the first night I was gluing stuff, I learned the importance of lighting for sure. Let me switch my view real quick because I want to be able to point, make sure I'm holding this up where you guys can see it. Okay. It's like there's some spots I need to hit up, obviously, where we see the gray. But like in my opinion, that's really cool. The shading differences in the green there. Because I think if I tried this, it would just be one glob of green. A little bit better job underneath. I don't know. I think I like that effect. Obviously, my painting just needs to get a little bit better so I don't have these areas. And so I'll just have to touch that up. That was using the Dark Angels green. One thing I've learned in watching stuff online is some of these are more opaque than others. So, like the browns, I think you get a lot of the undercoat coming through, the base coat. But yeah, I think that's cool. So, he needs some work, though. And hopefully those little errors get better over time. But I'm really happy with that. I'm not going to try to fix him. He's pretty well dry. Let's take a look at our Space Marines. So, I think this could use some work. I think he's actually more in focus if I hold him way down here. Yeah, I need to practice this for sure. And I think it'll dry some more, but it's just really streaky. Now, I'm also going to do black so I can decide if this is how I want them. But maybe I just need to work faster and not worry so much about the detail to prevent this pooling. So we'll see how he ends up. Now, I will say I'm very happy with the two tiny colors we've put on this guy. I think the bone already looks fantastic. I like that it's pooling in those little holes. And look at those abs. Ka-chow. Ka-chow. I think that's really, like, there it's coming through really nicely, I think, especially on the bone. So that's great. This remains to be seen. So, it is what it is. And that's the whole point of this YouTube series, is to learn the process and see what works and what doesn't work. And that's why we're starting with the tester plague marines. So next time I'll save this guy maybe for next week or something when we do this again. I'm going to try him with black, the Black Templar. Maybe I'll get him done up ahead of time so we can just take a look at him. We'll keep working on the Untamed Beasts, and maybe it'll warm up and I can get some of the Underworlds and other stuff primed up. All right, thank you. This has been Conflict and Contrast, which is, yeah, that's what we're calling this going forward. So thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Greg, Kyle, thanks for the great conversation and keep me entertained as I color these dudes in. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Stay warm, stay safe. Thanks.